Advanced C1, C2 level English is needed for your IELTS, university degree, and formal presentations. But did you know that 60% of natives' daily speech is A-level words? 30% is B-level, and that leaves only 10% for C-level words. For the last month, I have listened to regular native speakers on TV, movies, and YouTube, and I wrote down every C-level word that I heard. There weren't many. Today you'll learn 17 C1, C2 advanced words that natives actually use in everyday speech. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. Have you heard the adjective nefarious? Nefarious. This is a C2 level adjective. Notice that pronunciation, nefarious. This is an alternative to common words that you may know like wicked, evil, or criminal in nature. You might say he was involved in a nefarious plot to steal company secrets. So an evil plot, a bad plot, a wicked plot. And remember, it's an adjective, so it modifies the noun, a nefarious plot.
I'm not suggesting anything nefarious, it's just how it is.
Or perhaps the company was accused of nefarious business practices, so criminal business practices. Or, in question form, are they really capable of such nefarious acts? I heard this adjective many times from native speakers when discussing business activities. Don't worry about taking notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. How about this C1 adjective? Disparate. Disparate. This means essentially different or unrelated in nature. This was a common one when making comparisons. For example, they combined two disparate ideas into one innovative product. So two seemingly very different, even incompatible ideas.
And combination, as we all know, is the root of innovation, combining disparate ideas, people, and resources to come up with something entirely new and different.
Or you might say these findings are too disparate to draw a single conclusion. Or perhaps as a question, were the groups always this disparate in size and opinion? So very different. One group had 5 people and another group had 3,025 people. You may be familiar with this C1 verb, streamline. Streamline. This means to improve a process or system by making it simpler and more efficient. This one was very commonly used. You'll hear it a lot, especially in a business context, or if you're giving a more formal presentation, you can use this word choice. We need to streamline our production process to reduce costs. So we need to improve, but for the purpose of efficiency. Or you can use this in the negative. She didn't streamline the workflow as planned, so there were a lot of losses in time or money. Or you might ask, how can they streamline communications between departments? So notice here is streamline communication, so improve the efficiency of how the two departments communicate. That one is absolutely a must-know in your everyday vocabulary, even though it is an advanced word.
We can use this IV person as a way to streamline that communication.
How about this? Scrutinize, scrutinize, scrutinize. This is a C1 verb. Native speakers will often use a flap T and say scrutinize, scrutinize. You'll hear both. Scrutinize, scrutinize. This means to examine something very carefully. And you often do it for the purpose of trying to find flaws or errors, mistakes. That's why. So you might say, I always scrutinize the ingredients before buying anything. So you review it very carefully, and maybe the flaw is there is a high amount of sugar or something bad for your health. Or in a more professional context, the manager scrutinized every detail of the report, which is the role of a manager. Or someone might ask you, did you scrutinize the contract? Did you review it so carefully that you are confident We're not signing something that has some hidden flaw in it. Did you scrutinize the contract?
These data are scrutinized both by markets and by researchers.
Next, let's review proliferate. Proliferate. This is a C1 verb. This means to increase rapidly in number or to spread quickly. I heard this a lot when referring to the media. For example, fake news has proliferated on social media in recent years. It has spread rapidly.
And those stories have proliferated across this nation as young men and women serve and fall.
You can use this with something every day like rumors, false or just information that hasn't been verified that people share with each other. The rumors didn't proliferate as expected. So that could be a positive thing because you're using it in the negative. And this is very commonly used in a science perspective. For example, how did harmful bacteria proliferate in that area? How did it spread or increase in number so quickly? Next, let's review fallacy. Fallacy. This was very commonly used by everyday native speakers. This is a C1 noun, and a fallacy is a mistaken belief. And it's one usually based on faulty reasoning. So maybe you didn't scrutinize the contract, so there's a fallacy, a mistaken belief. You might say it's a fallacy to assume that more money always leads to more happiness. It's a mistaken belief. Or he didn't recognize the fallacy in his argument. So he had some beliefs in his argument and he didn't recognize is a more advanced word, that they were mistaken. They were based on perhaps false information that was proliferated. Or how about this as a question? What common fallacies do people believe about success? So this could be an interesting question that people would discuss or debate. And notice that plural, fallacies, fallacies.
It's a fallacy to think that, well, we signed this and everybody has coverage. No, it's not true. And then of the people who do have coverage, a lot of them have huge copays and deductibles.
This next one is very common, caveat. Caveat. This is a C1 noun. Now, a caveat is a warning. It can also be a condition that must be considered. For example, you could say to your kid or even your sister, your friend, you can borrow the car with one caveat.
However, be careful. There's one caveat.
So it's like saying on one condition, if you're familiar with that expression, with one caveat. So one warning or one thing to consider. It's the terms of the agreement. And what's the caveat? No highway driving. So you can drive anywhere, not on the highway. Or perhaps she ignored the caveats and faced the consequences. Ooh. So there were some warnings, but she ignored the caveats. She didn't scrutinize the contract, so now she has to face the consequences. Or as a question, were there any caveats attached to the agreement? Remember, with the driving example, the caveat was you can't drive on the highway. So in many times when you enter an agreement with someone, there are caveats. Let's review incorporate. You may be familiar with this one. It's a C1 verb. It means to include or integrate a part into the whole. For example, the design incorporates elements from traditional art. So they took this traditional art and then they put it into the design. They incorporated it. Or for example, they haven't incorporated the feedback into the final version. So the final version does not include. Or as a question, how do you incorporate user suggestions into development? That could be an interview question if you're a developer.
We have to be able to incorporate that into the larger context of how the future may be unfolding. It's one piece to the puzzle.
Our next phrase, to be predicated on. This is a C2 phrase. Notice it's the passive verb. To be based on or depend on something. That's what predicated means. So you might say his entire argument is predicated on outdated data. So to be predicated on, you conjugate the verb to be. Their assumptions weren't predicated on facts, so the past simple plural. As a question, is your strategy predicated on long-term trends? So again, more commonly, based on. This is a more advanced version, predicated on.
The entire project is predicated on this act of love, which is listening itself.
How about incentivize? Do you know this C1 verb? Hopefully you do, because it has a great meaning. It means to provide incentives or motivation to encourage an action. So an incentive is something that I give you because I want a certain behavior from you. So I might offer you money in exchange for subscribing to my YouTube channel. That would be a great incentive, wouldn't it? I'm not going to do that. Maybe I would offer you something easier to provide, but that would be a perfect incentive for you. Difficult for me. So the government incentivized, this is the verb form. So to incentivize. The government incentivized green energy adoption. So perhaps the government provided the company with tax breaks, tax savings, to incentivize them to adopt green technology.
And so this is a way of trying to incentivize all these corporations who are sitting on all this money abroad to start using some of their huge resources.
Or in the negative, they didn't incentivize their employees effectively. So they didn't give them the rewards needed to produce the behavior wanted. Or in question form, how can we incentivize better performance? How can I incentivize my students to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel? Maybe I'll just ask you, can you please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel? It would mean the world to me. So hopefully that's enough of an incentive for you. Now the next one, to be an advocate of. This is a C1 phrase, it's a noun phrase. So this means to actively support a cause, idea, or policy. She's always been an advocate of, and then something, mental health awareness. So notice again, you have your verb to be that you need to conjugate. Here we have it in the past simple negative. He wasn't an advocate of the new policy until recently, perhaps. So he didn't support it until recently. Or as a question, are you an advocate of remote work? Do you support it? Do you promote it? Are you an advocate of remote work?
I'm a law professor, lawyer, and civil rights advocate.
Now our next one, magnitude. This is a C1 noun, magnitude. It's the great size, importance, or extent of something. They underestimated the magnitude of the crisis. The importance or significance, it could be in terms of size or just impact. The magnitude of the earthquake wasn't reported accurately. Or can we truly grasp the magnitude of this challenge?
We're reminded that discoveries of this magnitude don't happen overnight.
Let's look at elicit. Elicit. This is a C1 verb. If you elicit something, it means you draw out, you evoke a response, information, or reaction. So you cause it to happen. For example, the teacher's question elicited thoughtful answers from the class. He didn't elicit any useful information during the interview.
As an interviewer, I know that questions elicit answers in their likeness.
Or can you elicit feedback from the participants? How about this one? Inextricably. Inextricably. Notice that pronunciation? Repeat after me. Inextricably. This is a C2 adverb. So you can change it to other forms, but here is presented as an adverb because it's the way I heard it most commonly used. And this is in a way that is impossible to separate. So this is a great one because you might say culture and language are inextricably linked.
They're inextricably linked. And I think they make us better decision makers.
So notice, as an adverb, it modifies the verb linked, which means connected. And inextricably means that you cannot divide them. So you can't learn a language without learning about the culture. Would you agree with that? Maybe that's my question that elicited an interesting discussion. These two issues aren't inextricably connected, which means you can separate them. Or here's an interesting question that might elicit discussion. Are our identities inextricably tied to our jobs? So you have your identity, Jennifer, and then I have what I do, English teacher. Is it possible to think of who I am without thinking of what I do? Or are they inextricably tied, which is another way of connecting? I think that would definitely elicit a useful or interesting discussion. Now let's review culmination. This is a C1 noun. It's the highest or final point of something, especially after a process. For example, the concert was the culmination of years of training. So it was the end result, the final but highest point of years of training. You might say it wasn't the culmination we had hoped for. Or was this event the culmination of their work? Was it the highest point or the end result?
This is a culmination of my live stream. I'm so happy to enter the order. This is such a blessing.
Let's review simultaneously. You may have heard this one. Do you feel comfortable using it? Simultaneously. Simultaneously. Notice this is the adverb form. It's a C1 adverb. It simply means at the same time. The film was released simultaneously in several countries. So we have Japan, Germany, and Puerto Rico, and at the same time, simultaneously. You can use this in the negative. She didn't complete the tasks simultaneously, which might be a good thing, not to do two things at the same time. Or you might ask, are we supposed to start the tasks simultaneously? Or should I first do one task, finish it, scrutinize it, and then move on to the next task?
He is simultaneously one of the most impactful and tragic scientists of all time.
And how about this one? Erroneously. Erroneously. Have you heard this one? It's very commonly used. It's a C2 adverb. It simply means in a mistaken or incorrect way. Erroneously, you can see the beginning part looks like the word error. So that might help you remember that it means in a mistaken or incorrect way. The data was erroneously interpreted. So the data was interpreted incorrectly. There was an error when interpreting the data. Or you might say we erroneously thought the meeting was today. You may be comfortable with we mistakenly thought the meeting was today, so you can replace mistakenly with erroneously. Or you might ask, was the system erroneously programmed to shut down early? So was it programmed but incorrectly, mistakenly? Was it erroneously programmed to shut down early?
The media and public erroneously believe that the majority of post-9/11 vets have a mental health disorder.
Now you have advanced words that natives actually use, and you can too. Do you want me to keep helping you expand your vocabulary? If you do, put let's go, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.